right, and hello everyone, and welcome into another episode of Matt Sports Talk. And it's hard to believe that it's just about the end of October, and the weather has gotten a lot colder. The leaves on the trees are falling onto the ground, and there's definitely chilly and cornbread weather. That is for sure. So, but this time of the year, basketball season, it's actually for pretty much the whole entire NAIA starts in the next couple of days. Well, actually, some teams start tomorrow. And so in this video, I'll be going over all of the teams ranked in the top 25 for both the men and the women. So I'm going to do this in one video, so bear with me. When I had done a prediction video last month talking about the Crossroads League during my annual my annual predictions of where teams would finish in the Crossroads League, I did not mention in those videos where I thought teams would be ranked nationally inside the top 25. So that's why I wanted to record this video and talk about that. So starting first on the men's side, and of course we're going to start with the number one ranked team, and that is the College of Idaho. Their mascot are the Yotes for Coyotes, and they won the national championship last year. They are named the number one team in the country in preseason, and they are led by a senior guard, Samaje Morgan. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. And he was collected the first team All-American honors. And they won the last 25 games of the season last year coming into this year. So that's going to be interesting to watch that. And number two in the country is Arizona Christian. They went to the Final Four last year, and this is on the men's side. And they are going to be led this year by a returning third-team All-American, Onakpoma. And now this team, the Firestorm of Arizona Christian, they are going to be led by a ton of juniors and seniors. So you definitely have a lot of upperclassmen leadership. So that's obviously really important when you're talking about these teams. And now, should the Firestorm qualify for the NAIA National Tournament, which that tournament field is going to be announced the first week of March, and so should this team make that national tournament, that would be 8 straight appearances in the field. And then the number 3 team in the country are the Tigers of Georgetown College out of Kentucky, and they lost in the Elite Eight last year. And then number 4 is Langston out of Oklahoma, and they lost in a Sweet 16 round last year, but they're going to be looking to go a lot farther than that this year. And then number 5 in the country is Freed Hardman, and this is a Lions team that averaged over 80 points per game last year and averaged over 34 rebounds a game. And so Freed Hardman is 5th. And then the Wildcats of Indiana Wesleyan, this was a team that had high expectations last year. They were projected first in the conference tournament last year in the Crossroads League. They finished in a tie for 5th due to a lot of injuries. They are projected this year to finish first once again, and they are 6th in the country in preseason, returning 2 very key players in DJ Moore and Bright Kari. And DJ Moore plays as a guard, Bright Kari plays as a forward. And something that's going to add to their talent this year in terms of their size down low in the post is going to be Rocco Moratori, who's 7'3", and he's a redshirt junior center. And the Wildcats last year, they shot over 50% from the field, and they also shot roughly 40% from deep, and they had a plus 9.6 scoring margin as well. And then the Lancers of Grace College are ranked 7th, and they are a young team this year. They graduated 7 players last year, but they're going to be led by Ian Roush and Gage Sefton. And the Lancers are trying for their 5th straight consecutive Crossroads League title. And then the Red Raiders of Northwestern are ranked 8th in the country. They're voted to finish 1st in the GPAC Conference, which is the Great Plains Athletic Conference. And they are going to be led by Jesse Van Kalsbeek, Jalen Langsey, and Caleb Booth. And they averaged nearly 90 points per game last year. And then the Masters is ranked number 9th in the country. Oklahoma Wesleyan ranked 10th. And they lost a lot of key players going into this year. The Eagles of Oklahoma Wesleyan, but they're still projected to finish 1st in the KCAC Conference, and they were the national title runners-up last year. And then other teams further down the list, Montana Tech 11th, followed by Pikeville out of Kentucky, LSU, Alexandria, Southern Oregon, Ave Maria, Bethel out of Indiana, Nelson out of Texas, Dalton State, Georgia, Morningside, Iowa, Cumberland's Kentucky, Indiana Tech, Life out of Georgia, Graceland out of Iowa, Friends out of Kansas, and Kaiser out of Florida. And all the teams receiving votes on the men's side are going to be Dordt, Iowa, Georgia Gwinnett, LSU Shreveport, St. Mary, Kansas, Hope International, California, Lewis Clark State, Idaho, Central Baptist, Arkansas, Johnson out of Tennessee, Oregon Tech, Rio Grande out of Ohio, Peru State out of Nebraska, Spring Arbor out of Michigan, Madonna out of Michigan, and Mid-America Christian out of Oklahoma. And those are so that is a look at on the men's side in the NAIA, the top 25. Now we go over to the women's side. And there's a lot to talk about here as well. So, and I'm up to roughly about 6.5 minutes talking about the men's side. So it'd be awesome if we could talk about the women's side in 6.5 minutes as well. That'd be pretty cool, right? At least we hope it might be more than 6.5 minutes, but again, bear with me on that. So talking about on the women's side, and now on the women's side, the 2-time defending champions, Dordt out of Iowa, spent the entire year in a 23/24 and last season 24-25. They've spent the last 2 seasons at number 1 in the country, and that streak remains as well for this year. Now, in terms of the preseason this year, there is a lot of movement between a lot of teams compared to where they were ranked last year at this time. Now, the only teams that are ranked in the top 25, the only teams that remain in the same place as last year were Dordt out of Iowa, Campbellsville out of Kentucky, and then these next few teams I'm going to mention all moved into the top 25 for the very first time this year, and that includes Carroll out of Montana. Now, this team was ranked 4th in the country in the 23/24 season when they suffered a tough loss to Indiana Wesleyan. And Carroll out of Montana, this is a tough conference as well. And the other teams that moved into the top 25 compared to at this point last year were Indiana Tech, St. Francis out of Illinois, Rocky Mountain out of Montana, Shawnee State, Ohio, and Lindsey Wilson out of Kentucky. And then, so talking about Dordt, and this is a team that they are a powerhouse. And Bill Harmson, he's a great head coach, does a great job. And they returned the 2025 Tournament Most Valuable Player and NAIA Player of the Year, Macy Sivers. And she is also joined alongside of Gracie Schoenhoven, Olivia Harrison, Willow Bleeker, and Desta Hugendorn. And these are really just amazing players for Dordt. And then Bethel out of Tennessee, this is a team that had an amazing run in the national tournament last year. They went all the way to the Final Four last year, and they are returning everybody on their roster last year except Madison and Micah Hart. And those 2 girls were first and second team All-Americans. And then the Wildcats also have a top newcomer this year, Ada Coling. And the last time that this team was ranked this high in preseason was back in 2015/16. The Tigers of Campbellsville are ranked 3rd, and they returned some amazing players. In fact, Ginger High Colvin, who is their head coach, she's been at Campbellsville over 20 years, and she has done an amazing job and consistently leading this team to be this good year after year. They return top players including Tyra Flowers, Whitney Hay, Paige Serafini, Dia Bradley, and Talon Shearer, with a couple of freshmen as well, including Addie Gilbert and Katie Smiley. And then Dakota State is ranked 4th this year in preseason, and they're in the North Star Athletic Conference. They return that conference player of the year last year, Tabor Teal, along with 3 other starters. And then the Lady Knights of Marion are ranked 5th in preseason, and this was a little bit of a surprise to me because Marion is projected to finish 2nd in the conference this year, meaning the Crossroads League. I talked about that in my last video. And regarding Marion, this is a little bit of a shock to me why they are ranked this high. Now, they did make the Elite 8 round last year, but they do play some really good teams before the next poll comes out, and those teams are Pikeville out of Kentucky, St. Xavier, Illinois, IU Northwest, and Oakland City. So some really, really good competition for the Lady Knights, and they return first-team All-American, who's a senior, Abby McNally, alongside Taylor Double, Kenna Kirby, Olivia Faust, Madison Bailey, and Kylie McNally, who is Abby's sister. And then the Lady Lions of Freed-Hardeman ranked 6th, and they made the Elite 8 round last year, and then falling to Indiana Wesleyan 77-46 in that matchup. And they had a stellar year last year, 28-5. In last year, under first-year head coach Abby Stutz, and Abby is returning this year. In her second year, her brother Drew coaches Freed-Hardeman's men's team, which is also ranked inside the top 10. I mentioned that earlier on in this video. And I got to see this team play against Indiana Tech in the Sweet 16 round of a national tournament last year out in Sioux City, Iowa. And this is a Lady Lions team. They definitely have what it takes to make a deeper run this year in the national tournament. And of course, they play in the Mid-South Conference. And so for Freed-Hardeman, I think that in terms of the 4 best teams in the Mid-South Conference this year, definitely would be Campbellsville, Bethel, Freed-Hardeman, and then Lindsey Wilson, I think, are the 4 best teams in the Mid-South this year, and I really expect those 4 teams to make the national tournament. And again, anything can happen. This is just preseason, but based on just how competitive the Mid-South Conference is year after year, that would not surprise me if those 4 teams make the Final Four round. Then you had Lewis Clark State ranked 7th in the country this year, and they return 3 top players from last year, headlined by Darian Herring, who set the program's single-season blocks record last year. They also return Peyton Hymas and Satara Bird, and the Warriors welcome 2 newcomers, a freshman Madeline Green and a junior that is transferring, and her name is Ellie Brockman. And then St. Francis of Indiana ranked 8th in preseason. This is a team that last year I believe was ranked 12th or 14th in preseason. They rose as high as number 9, and this is a team that's projected to finish first in the Crossroads League, and they have notable players returning, which was Crossroads League Freshman of the Year, Callie Gregory. She is returning this year alongside Isabella Gizzi and Rena Schweiderman, and Schweiderman transferring from NCAA Division I, University of Purdue, Fort Wayne. So this is a team that is going to be very dangerous this year in terms of their size, in terms of their capabilities. This is a team that could really go pretty far in the national tournament. And I think Marion has a slight advantage over St. Francis to finish in that number 1 spot in the Crossroads League. Again, I could be wrong, but that is just how I see it in my personal opinion. However, St. Francis is a really tough team. And then moving on down the list, Dakota Wesleyan is ranked 9th in preseason, and they finished in the second round last year, and then I believe they fell to Georgetown College out of Kentucky in the second round last year. And Dakota Wesleyan has returned, or will return, 8 of its top 9 players that were on the roster last year, and they were picked number 2 to finish in the Great Plains Athletic Conference preseason poll, which is the GPAC. And the GPAC is one of the most, again, I think the GPAC is just as competitive as the Crossroads League and Mid-South Conference, and I think those 3 conferences are probably the 3 most competitive out of every single conference in the NAIA. And then rounding out the top 10, the Wildcats of Indiana Wesleyan. This is a team that finished 2nd in the country last year, and they lost to Dordt in the championship game, and they are they were picked to finish third in the Crossroads League behind St. Francis and Marian. Now, in my personal opinion, based on these three teams in the Crossroads League, you have Marian 5th, St. Francis 8th, and IWU 10th. And this is NAIA top 25 ranking. This is not Crossroads League prediction. Now, to me, if you wanted to, I guess, make some, not really comparison, but if you wanted to get a little technical and talk about, based on the top 25 rankings, where these three teams are going to finish in the Crossroads League, you would kind of expect Marian to finish first, and then it would come down to a really close battle with St. Francis and Indiana Wesleyan to finish second and third respectively in any order, which is exactly how I see it, and is exactly as I had predicted last month in my prediction video. And if in case you missed that, you can find that on Matt's Sports Talk Season 2 playlist in case you're brand new to the channel and you missed out on all those videos. You can, and I'm going to put all basketball episodes under that playlist, including this video, so you can easily go back to this video in case you need to go back for some refreshers. So, and now the Wildcats finished 4th actually in the country last year in the final poll. They were as high as number 2nd, but they did graduate a ton of people, including Izzy Reed, Maddie Lawrence, Jade Nutley, and Taylor Folkema, all graduated last year, as well as Josie Rhodes. So this is a Wildcat team that has lost a lot of talent down low in the post, but they're still a top 10 team, and I definitely agree with this. Now, I really had thought IWU probably would be down around that 15 to 20 spot, especially as what they were during the 2020/21 season. Now, for them to be 10th, I believe 2 years ago, 23/24, they were consistently right around that 10 to 15, roughly about that 10 to 15 spot, pretty much that whole entire season. And I definitely agree with that this year. And then looking further down the list, you had Langston out of Oklahoma ranked 11th, up from 17th. Hastings out of Nebraska up to 12th from 18th. Mid-America Naz out of Kansas down to 13th from 10th. Oregon Tech up to 14th from 23rd. Southern Oregon down to 15th from 2nd. Carroll out of Montana receiving votes to 16th. Indiana Tech receiving votes to 17th. Arizona Christian down 4 spots to 18th from 14th. And then you had St. Francis out of Illinois receiving votes to 19th. Now, St. Francis out of Illinois, they play in another tough conference. They play in the CSAC, which is the Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference. Then you have Briarcliff falling to 20th from 5th. Briarcliff, of course, among that powerhouse team or part of the powerhouse teams in the GPAC, Great Plains Athletic Conference. Rocky Mountain receiving votes up to 21st. LSU Shreveport up to 22nd from 25th. Shawnee State out of Ohio from receiving votes to 23rd. Lindsey Wilson out of Kentucky not rated to 24th. And then Cumberland's out of Kentucky. This is a little bit of a shock, falling down to 25th from 5th. Now for the Lady Patriots, they graduated the Monday sisters. Cassie Monday and her sister both graduated last year, so this obviously has a huge impact to the Lady Patriots team. They finished 26-6 last year, so obviously that is a big loss for them. And then the teams that dropped out of the top 25 from last year: Georgetown out of Kentucky, William Carey, Mississippi. I've talked about Rio Grande. Wayland Baptist out of Texas, Providence out of Montana, Xavier out of Louisiana, Mid-America Christian out of Oklahoma. All the receiving votes teams. You had Governor State, Illinois, once again playing in the CSAC Athletic Conference, along with St. Francis of Illinois, IU Northwest, and Olivet Nazarene out of Illinois. And Olivet Nazarene is receiving votes in preseason, as well as Loyola, Louisiana, Georgetown, Kentucky, Providence, Montana, Florida Memorial, Pikeville, Columbia, Missouri, Xavier, Louisiana. Pikeville's out of Kentucky, Southeastern out of Florida, Montana Tech, Grandview out of Iowa. Grandview made the second round last year and then lost to Indiana Wesleyan 71-60. Evangel out of Missouri, William Carey, Mississippi, and Huntington now receiving votes. So the Crossroads League could easily get at least 4 teams in the national tournament this year. College of Idaho, Wayland Baptist, LSU Alexandria, Mid-America Christian, Oklahoma, Morningside, Iowa, Milligan, Tennessee, Friends out of Kansas, Olivet Nazarene, Illinois, I talked about them, Williams Baptist, Arkansas, and Hope International out of California. And those are all your top 25 teams, and does end this video pardon me, talking about the men's and the women's side. So I hope this video was super helpful to you. And if it was, please either like, comment, or subscribe. Any one of those options helps me out greatly. And for those of you that have subscribed to my channel, I really, really appreciate that. Please keep on subscribing. Please keep sharing my channel with your friends, your family. And let's get up to 500 subscribers by February 21st. We're getting there. And again, those of you that have subscribed, I truly appreciate that. And please, please keep subscribing. So thanks so much for watching this video. Have a blessed rest of your day, and God bless.